Chess, drugs, and rock and roll. The Queen's Gambit is one swaggering campaign to make chess sexy again. It's already been over a year since it came out, and we thought it was time to take a look at the impact of this immensely popular show. Let's go. Choosing to make a show revolving around a game often portrayed as something for geeks and old people must have been a difficult sell. However, the show not only succeeded narratively but smashed record after record in terms of streams, and, more interestingly, injected a whole new level of juice into the world of the beautiful game to send it skyrocketing in popularity. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Scott Frank, the mastermind behind the series, had always wanted to take the time to explore the burden of genius and prodigy. And what better way to display a youthful prodigy than to adapt a book around the ins and outs of chess? Scott was set out to make something like this for years, as he was a fan of the book the show is based on with the same name. And what a good decision it turned out to be. With great attention to detail and with some generous consultation from the likes of Garry Kasparov, former world champion and renowned grandmaster, we get memorable lines like,
"For you, Beth Harmon, I resign the old-fashioned way."
As well as genuinely good games of chess. That's right, the pieces aren't just shuffled around for cinematic effects, but are legitimate and exciting exchanges of chess. I've alluded to this before, but this just goes to show that people will go out of their way to watch things that are actually good. Netflix would have you believe otherwise considering their recent catalog, but they have just witnessed how taking the time to tell a complete and compelling narrative resulted in their most watched limited series yet.
Coincidence? I think not!
Since the launch of The Queen's Gambit, its success has brought plenty of money and attention, as most popular shows do. In this case, however, it has also generated some interesting effects in the real world. Now, media affecting the real world isn't a new thing. It's been a consistent cultural phenomenon forever. For instance, The Big Bang Theory increased the UK's total college physicists by 10% in just a year. Top Gun caused a surge in aviators enlisting by a whopping 500%. Even kids' movies can have a drastic effect on people, and Bambi reduced the number of hunters up to 50% after its initial release. And who knows how many youngsters watched that movie and decided to never take up the rifle in the first place. Toy Story saved Etch-a-Sketch, James Bond caused a spike in razor sales, archaeologists are more prone to wear fedoras because of course they would. It's not confined to television though. Video games, comic books, editorials, and books from all parts of history have just as much sway to the public if it gets enough attention. So what about the Queen's Gambit effect then? Well, compared to most media examples affecting real life, the Queen's Gambit has not only contributed to a temporary boost in sales, but has changed cultural perception of something so fundamental to us as chess, to an extraordinary amount and in such a short time. With the show's release in late October, naturally, chess sets became a trendy Christmas gift in 2020. In the first month, sales of chess sets in the United States went up by 87%, and chess book sales increased by more than 600%. Real-life professional chess players and entertainers started to take up more spotlight, such as world champion Magnus Carlsen, who was unsurprisingly already quite popular, but even he gained a massive boost in views and search results. This boost also expanded to other top players such as Hikaru Nakamura, with his Google searches increasing by 450%, making him the relatively greatest beneficiary of the Queen's Gambit effect in terms of Google searches. This didn't just affect living legends though. Paul Morphy, chess legend of the mid-19th century, got another few moments in the spotlight as well, much to the credit of Croatian YouTuber Antonio Radic of Agadmator's chess channel. Agadmator's video series of Morphy's most famous games have so far amounted to almost 100 videos and been watched over 1 million times. On the streaming side of things, Twitch got their fair share of the effect, with unique viewership in the chess category growing by a tasty 122% in the first 2 months after the show premiered. And we're just scratching the surface here. Memberships on chess-related platforms soared, chess streamers and various other sites saw an unprecedented rise in viewers, the original book became a bestseller a whole 37 years after its release, and soon enough, fans were able to play against protagonist Beth as an AI opponent on chess.com. And this is just within the first year. Who knows what butterfly effects this will result in years to come. Now, despite how ridiculous the numbers are for chess, something else sets the Queen's Gambit apart. The effect on the real world doesn't stop at numbers. The shockwaves of the effect extend to something more subtle, a topic long discussed and widely contested to no avail. Even though it's not a massive deal in the show, a disproportionate amount of attention has inevitably been directed at Beth being a woman in a male-dominated game. Funnily enough, the show more or less jumps the gun on the whole debacle by involving the satirical portrayal of the reporter, whose only interest in Beth is her being a poor little orphan girl instead of the fascinating player she is. Eerily similar to how a large proportion of viewers and critics view her character. Luckily, the show gracefully let these creatures down with this scene.
It's mostly about my being a girl.
Well, you are one.
Shouldn't be that important. They didn't print half the things I said. They didn't tell about Mr. Scheibel, and they didn't say anything about how I play the Sicilian.
Beth, dear, it makes you a celebrity.
Yeah, for being a girl.
Checkmate ideologists. But slam dunks aside, there is a conversation to be had about how the show brings a strong female character into the spotlight and uses that spotlight to cause a change in public perception. And people have certainly jumped onto that conversation. Articles, blogs, essays, and videos of all kinds have been made either reacting to or discussing female representation in chess. While this has brought out both positive and negative responses, the fact that this conversation is being had at all shows the influence of Beth as a character and the Queen's Gambit as a show. In an interview with The Guardian, Jovanka Hoska, international master and Britain's reigning women's champion, said the show does a good job of capturing the experience of female players, especially how prevalently girls are underestimated at amateur levels, but less so at higher levels where players actually, quote, respect each other, end quote. In the same article, Sarah Longson, former British women's champion, concurs. She likes the way Beth is drawn to chess books as it reflects her own path to mastery. Her only criticism of the show is how Beth's road to success seemed a bit too glorious. Quote, "You have to lose and learn from your losses to get better. This is where you develop resilience and loads of life skills." End quote. She's right, of course, as, spoilers, Beth's first competitive loss comes only in the final of the US Open. The road isn't always so straightforward, especially if you feel unwelcome or different. Initiatives have been taken to make women feel more included and represented, like the Casual Chess Café, a non-profit which aims to make chess more inclusive for everyone. Especially women. Wait a second. Anyway, greater equality of opportunity leading to greater inequality of outcome is hardly news. So how do we achieve equal interest in a gender-neutral activity such as chess? Well, the Queen's Gambit certainly sets an example of how unimportant gender is to play chess, so perhaps therein lies the answer. Make chess, or what have you, attractive enough for everyone to pay attention regardless of demographic. That's not to say you have to be sexy to get people to like chess, but it certainly helps. The fact remains that there are those who came to the Queen's Gambit for the intriguing casting narrative but stayed for the game. And in the end, the world is full of nuance after all, and it's not all black and white. Anyone? No? Okay, sorry. So, what makes the Queen's Gambit stand out? Well, some media is specifically made with the intention to cause a shift or change in perception or inspire intrigue. However, despite it more often than not working, like with James Bond's Racers, the change isn't substantial. Rather, it only causes a ripple that quickly returns to normal. That's obviously not the case here, as there was more than just the odd spike in sales of chessboards, but rather a shift in how people view and play the game of chess. So what's different here? Well, my theory is how it stems directly from the quality and unrelenting focus on the medium. The gratifying setting of the Queen's Gambit is no coincidence, and drawing inspiration from contemporary grandmasters like Bobby Fischer, Boris Spassky, and Anatoly Karpov, the character of Beth Harmon is made to inspire in turn. Acting, decor, and cinematography aside, the Queen's Gambit uses an intriguing narrative and portrays chess at all levels with dignity, realism, and just the right amount of romanticization. Shot for the most parts in schools, sports halls, and hotels, they give us a fair idea of what life of a professional chess player was like back in the days. Since the show centers on playing and studying chess, every episode has a mountain to climb in order to stay exciting. Fortunately, the writing goes out of its way to make up for the lack of action that most audiences have become accustomed to. Seeing Beth constantly climb ever higher is gratifying, even if you consider it a cheap thrill. Sure, there are parts that don't hit everyone the same. I, for instance, think the glorified Bender montage was made for people who think depression is an edgy personality trait, but even I have to admit that everything built up to her crash, so how could they not do it? One might even call it a forced move. Overall though, the series does a great job of dignifying the game of chess. Anya Taylor-Joy needs no further emphasis, as she and the supporting cast make chess seem cool, interesting, and even something you can enjoy as a group activity, combating the stigma that nerds are geeks, showing that knowledge is power and that competence is sexy. So what's the lesson in all this? A compelling narrative and somewhat sexy cast can change the world, obviously. Seriously though, it's funny to think how many shows are just a good script away from being Queen's Gambit levels of good. In any case, check out Agadmator's, Magnus's, and Hikaru's channels. They're some of the most popular chess channels on YouTube at the moment, and unlike most of us, they crank out several videos a day to satisfy the growing demand for chess content. I'm personally a fan of Daniel Naroditsky as well, who provides insightful analysis from a grandmaster's point of view. If you like this video, we have plenty more to watch and plenty more in the works, so be sure to subscribe for more. If you feel like supporting the channel, a like will do the trick and a comment even more so. And for those out there feeling extra sexy today, there's a link in the description for patrons as well. Thank you in advance, and as always, thank you for watching.